Excuse me, Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, the #1 sports information program in America, the Breakfast Bankroll, with your host, the sports broker, Jeff Dawson.
Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors. This is your Breakfast Bankroll for Tuesday, September 20th, 2022. Wow, 10 days left of this month. Where did it go? Trick or treat around the corner. Our weekly spot with a good friend, Julian Edlow of DraftKings. Our trip down Route 3 to I-93 as we talk local sports, the sports betting market, for whatever's hot and what's not. And Julian, an expert in the field of props, futures, dailies, you name it, he's got it. So we're blessed and gifted to have him here on a weekly basis. So without further ado, let's bring him in, the one and only Mr. Julian Edlow.
How we doing, Jeff?
Good morning, Julian. How are you?
Not too shabby. Got a little dinged up in week 2, but we'll survive.
We're 2 weeks in. We talked last week about the first week train wrecks every which way but loose. Assess yourself from a last week perspective, college and NFL, and then combine the 2 weeks, where you're sitting, what your eyes are seeing. Is it time to put a few of these teams in a racer, put a few of these teams in pen? You like what you're seeing? What don't you like what you're seeing?
Well, so far I would say, underdogs are obviously crushing, and that's fine, but I thought personally that in week 2 some more of those big favorites would bounce back. The Packers got there and covered against the Bears. The Niners, in a unique situation, forced to go to Jimmy G, wind up covering. The Rams get out to a hot start, but Falcons wind up backdooring. I think a lot of people tease the Bengals and the Browns both sitting around a touchdown. They both lose. I don't know how the Browns lost, but they lost. You get the wild game between Baltimore and Miami. I think that I probably, I don't know if the overreacted, underreacted. I don't even know what the word is. I thought that the favorites would be the side in week 2, and it would swing back to that, and it didn't. And I don't like the week 3 board very much. So I'm going to be playing the week 3 board pretty light. But I will say now, having both Bills games have been in prime time, so everybody's watched them. They look to be the best of the best to me. So that was 3.5 against Miami. It was moved to 4.5. It moved to 5.5. Now it sits on DraftKings Sportsbook. Dolphins are coming off a pretty emotional victory. Bills have won the last 6 quarters of play by a combined score of 62-7. Bills have beaten Miami 7 in a row. Bills have beaten Miami by double digits in 6 of those 7. I don't know. Bills are looking pretty good. When are they going to let down?
It's funny you say that. We had a nice stat here for a while, and I think a handful of weeks ago, you reached out to me the same way. The Sunday night MLB, the team that traveled and played on Monday did not win very often. I always talk in these lanes, Julian, about people remember what they saw last, and they're running to the window to play the Bills. They're running to the window to play the Eagles. Now, these teams are short week for sure now. Don't forget, they played till late last night. They wake up this morning, they get back into their whirlpools, they go through the film session, Wednesday, Thursday walkthrough, maybe a little pads, Friday walkthrough, and travel on Saturday. Listen, I'm sitting there with that Champions circuit ticket with the Astros, the Bills, and Bama. I mean, the Bills just have played the part again. Outscored the Rams 21-0 in the second half. Tennessee tied that at 7-7. It was a ball game, and then just the Bills flexed their muscles. And then the same in Philly. I mean, I know. Listen, everyone's going to shit on Cousins. Everyone's going to shit on him, but take my hat off to the defensive coordinator there because he perfectly timed his spots to blitz. And he didn't give Kirk any time to throw the ball, and he was trying to force feed Jefferson. I mean, they made Slade to look like, Revis Island yesterday. Hey, he had a great game, don't get me wrong, but I think it was the pressure that Philly put on Kirk that really was the big difference there.
Scoreless second half, 3 red zone interceptions, I think it was, for Cousins. Credit to the Philly defense, but yeah, it's always both when something like that happens and they score 7 points. Cousins was terrible as well. I don't know what it is. When the sun goes down, the dude can't play football in a primetime game. So next week, I'll say if there's another spot I've circled, I have three spots circled. It's the Bills, whether it be laying some points or taking a team total or whatever. The other is getting involved in that Lions-Minnesota game in some way. I think Minnesota should bounce back. They ticked down from 6.5 to 6 after the poor performance. They're at home against the Lions. But realistically, the way Lions totals have been going, they've been going way over the number. I think both teams should score. So that ticked down from 53 to 52.5. I don't mind the over in that game. And I like both teams being indoors.
You talked about the two that came from downtown. We were on the Jets as our dog of the day on Sunday. Unfortunately, our other two pooped the bed. The other game was Arizona and the Raiders. Raiders had a big lead, and Arizona comes from downtown. And again, the flags late. I mean, let's be realistic. Murray had 7 chances to get 3 yards to tie the game, and he didn't do it till the final play of the game. Why? Right. Because he was able to run it in. It wasn't because, AJ Green is a fossil of himself, and he still throws to him down there. I don't want to get this thing into a Josh thing. I said this on my timeline to anyone that wanted to read it or watch or listen. You change your area code from 617 to 702. It's still the same Josh McDaniel.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't done well as a head coach, and he's off to an 0-2 start, and he's got a huge collapse on his resume now against Arizona, and that's something that we've seen from him in the past. So I don't know how you let a game like that go. And like you said, the refs always play a role in it. The flags played a role in letting it ultimately get there, but you let it get close enough to be in a situation where it could be taken from you. And then, yeah, the Renfro fumbles in overtime and one eventually going back. It just some poor play, some bad luck. But yeah, it ultimately all ties back to poor coaching. And I think, if we've learned one thing, it's you gotta handicap for these coaches. That it's just worth so much. Denver looks awful with Hackett. He's been terrible. So I think my favorite play by far this week is that Sunday night game. I got the Niners at plus money. They're now slight favorites. The directions those teams are going in, you could see how excited the Niners were to get Jimmy G in there. And, Trey Lance could be a good player. And hopefully he recovers well from the injury. But now you have a veteran quarterback that knows how to win games in there. And it seems like the players were pretty happy about that. So I think they're trending up. They're kind of, reinvigorated with the quarterback change. And Denver, I'll just go against that coach, and Russell Wilson hasn't been completing passes in that offense. They haven't figured it out yet.
Let's talk about the locals. 1-1. We talked at length. How the hell are the Patriots 1.5 point favorites? They opened up at Pittsburgh. The look ahead line was 1.5. They stuck with 1.5. Got pushed to 2.5, closed at 3, so it lands on the number. A big win for them, 1-1, coming back home now Sunday for the home opener against the Ravens. The look ahead line was Ravens -3. It's still Ravens -3. Last year in the monsoon, and I can see that last drive like it was yesterday. I mean, it was just buckets coming down with Lamar trying to win that game. Initial early thoughts on the performance of the Pats, and it's only Tuesday. Initially, what you're thinking when it comes to the Pats and Ravens on Sunday?
Yeah, the performance on Sunday was kind of what I expected. I took the Patriots money line earlier in the week. I think around when we talked Tuesday or Wednesday, I put it out. It was more of a fade of the Steelers, and as long as the Patriots took care of the ball, and they kind of did, and Jones had an interception, made some other bad throws that could have been intercepted. But Trubisky is worse than Mac Jones, and Pittsburgh didn't have the fortune of winning the turnover battle 5-0 to stay in a game. And the Patriots ultimately just made a couple more plays, a couple of gross offenses, some decent defense, and the Patriots got there. I liked the play going downfield to Aguilar. That's not something they usually do. So I expected them to win a gross game. They won a gross game, and it doesn't change my opinion of their season. I still think they're going to have a pretty poor season, and I think we see that get right back on track against Baltimore on Sunday. I got the Ravens in a pick on a look-ahead line before the season. Now it's 3. I don't know if I would lay 3 with Baltimore, but I definitely lean that way. I think they're going to win the game. So Baltimore is really dinged up in the secondary, and we saw that. Miami didn't have it early, but they whatever it was, 2 of 4 fourth quarter touchdown passes, got to that secondary late, but they got to that secondary with Waddle and Tyreek Hill going nuts. The Patriots don't have those guys. So is Mac Jones will Devontae Parker finally make noise and catch one? Will it be Aguilar again or whatever? I think the Patriots are good for another one of those plays that we saw against Pittsburgh in this game, but that's going to be, you saw what Lamar Jackson did last week. That's going to be enough to do more than what Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore offense can do. I don't think so. So I think Baltimore is going to be the right side. I think we see the Patriots kind of go back to who they are and be, a little bit better than they were against Miami. I guess be who they were against Pittsburgh. But if they are who they were against Pittsburgh and put up 17 points, I just think Baltimore will do more than that.
Hey, Jules, I got a question for you. You said you got Baltimore at a pick. We talk about the CLV and the can and the mayor of Vegas, Sharapan, putting that up there all the time. I'm going to play devil's advocate with you for a second. Let's just say the Ravens get to 3.5, which is, a big half point, or even trickle to 4. With you sitting there with the Ravens at a pick 'em, do you ever go back in and take the other side and hope for the middle?
Depends on the game. Depends on how I feel about it. Depends how much money I have on it. If it's a smaller bet and you get 3.5 points, then I would just let it go. You got your good number. If you bet it in advance with the idea that, all right, I'm going to get some good value here and be able to bring it back and make some of my money or protect some of my money here and go for a middle, then I go that way. In this situation for me, I'm probably going to leave it alone. It's a 1 unit bet for me, and I got a good early number, and I feel that Baltimore is the side that's going to win the game. So I'm going to let it be. But yeah, there's so many situations of just getting good numbers so far this season and them not mattering at all. Because in the end, that's what Dave is getting at. This is bookmaking, and people love to say when a game lands right on the number, oh, Vegas is so good, they know. It's just making the number what you're going to get action on both sides. And then when there's an injury or whatever, adjusting it to what you feel is right. That's why, you go scroll through the board and you see all the results that go completely away from what we expect. The Jets winning, the Cowboys winning. Like, why wasn't the number? Why did the number cross? Why did the number get away from 6.5 and cross 7 for the Bengals? If everybody knew the Cowboys was going to win, you would keep it lower and keep taking all that Bengals money. It's more about being on the right side and trying to get the right side than the number coming into play. If that makes sense. But that said, yeah, you always want. Of course, I want the Ravens in a pick 'em instead of -3.
I'm going to circle the wagons here before we close. Let's jump into some college. Week 2, the cream just staying rising at the top. I mean, this Georgia team is stupid. I got bit by the Vegas, banana in the tailpipe. I like to see. South Carolina team total was 14 and a hook against a Georgia team that only had given up 3 the whole season. Rattler really moved the ball well in the first and second quarter, but of course turnovers, and that's what happens when you play a Georgia team, and we got bit there. Bama just business as usual against UL Monroe. It was, or Lafayette, one of the two. It really wasn't much there. So with that being said, Clemson being actually, let me backtrack. Ohio State getting those team totals like we talked about all season. They're getting lathered up for Big Ten opener against Wisconsin. Clemson seems to be kind of sort of back. Your team that you talked about all summer with us, Utah. That number usually against the San Diego State team is a lot lower. When I saw the 20 and a half, 0-0 through much of the first quarter into the second quarter. Utah flexed its muscles. That's just a few of the teams. What did you see last week?
Yeah, it was a pretty good weekend of college football. We don't always learn much from those type of games from the contenders, Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia. I guess we learned the most about that they're legit again and dominate a South Carolina team. Let me see. There's a lot of spots that I like in college much more than NFL this week. Notre Dame is not good. 0-2. They can't cover against Cal. They need some fortunate calls and some drop balls and stuff just to beat them by a touchdown at home. UNC is I bet Notre Dame and UNC under their win totals. I've pretty much won Notre Dame, I feel like. UNC, I'm extremely worried about. They're 3-0. They have a really good-looking offense, and they can make some noise in the ACC. We'll see if they win 8 or 7 games. We'll see. But this week, they are off the bye, at home, hosting Notre Dame. I don't see how Notre Dame keeps up with this offense. Josh Downs hasn't even played the last 2 games, All-American wide receiver. He's expected to return. Like, even if Notre Dame's defense is decent, I don't get how they score the points to hang around. Like, UNC doesn't have a very good defense, but we're still talking about teams like Marshall and Cal that you're staying around 24 points, whatever they had against Marshall in the teens. Like, I don't know how they're going to keep up. So that's a spot that immediately jumped out to me. Texas A&M beat and covered against Miami at home, but they got their first touchdown off of a muffed punt on an extremely short field. Miami missed 2 field goals in that game. A&M scored 17 points, even with the quarterback change. I'm not high on A&M. This is going to be a neutral game in Dallas against Arkansas. Arkansas, embarrassing. I don't even remember who they played off the top of my head, but it was Bobby Petrino's FCS team or FBS team, and they needed a second half comeback to win that game. I think Arkansas was just looking at it. I think Arkansas bounces back and wins this game against Texas A&M. I think they're the better team. Let's see, where else on the college card? Michigan State, I think, the ranked team. Why are they an underdog at Washington? Washington's pretty good. They beat up on them. Now Michigan State comes home and hosts a Minnesota team that lost its top wide receiver for the season now. I think it's a bounce back spot at home as a dog for Michigan State. Baylor, I think I like Baylor against Iowa State. I think Baylor's shown to be pretty good. They lost kind of a weird fluky game against a really good BYU team in overtime a couple weeks ago in their last real test. Iowa State lost a ton of talent off last year's team. I'm not sure that that they can keep up there. What other one? I think I had 5. Oregon State. I got Oregon State +7 at home against USC. The money will come piling in on USC because everybody wants to bet USC. Oregon State is good. They put up points. They have speed all over the field. I think that one has the potential to be a big upset there.
What's your thoughts on Michigan?
Michigan's good. That's the full question. My thoughts on Michigan. Michigan's good. They have a larger win differential than Georgia, I think, so far this year, in terms of points per game. And it's gonna come down to, can they beat Ohio State again? And they're gonna have to do it at the Big House this year, because both of those teams aren't going into the college football playoff, and they can't both make the conference championship game because they play on the same side. This isn't like the SEC where it's Georgia and Alabama on different sides, and you're always going to get them in that game. So I don't see how it doesn't come down to the same situation as last year. It was whoever won that game was going to get into the conference title game, and Michigan finally, after all those years, gets it at home. I can't imagine that they're going to go to the Big House, that they're going to go to the Horseshoe and win it this year. So that almost sums up what I think about them. Like, what if they go 11-1 with a loss to Ohio State and don't get the chance to make their conference championship game? Like, can they get in? Can they get in like that? Because Ohio State, as long as they don't lose the conference championship game, then they're going to get in.
There's a team that I saw last week, and again, we know that the SEC is kryptonite, meaning everyone and their mother, whether they wake up on Saturday and they don't do their homework, they just take every SEC team that they can against another conference. It doesn't matter what the spread is. Well, Penn State opened up 3-point favorites in Auburn, and Auburn was one of those public trendy dogs, and Penn State just mopped the floor with them. I think in 2 weeks, I was talking to Dave, in 2 weeks, they head to Michigan. Penn State have a shot, or is this just the Michigan and Ohio State division? Conference, I should say.
I don't think Penn State has a shot. They're a good team. Win total I think was 8.5. So you win games like that at Auburn, you're probably going to get to 9 and go over your win total. And it's nice to have a veteran quarterback like Clifford. And I know this team got into the top 4. I think they were 4th in that initial college football playoff ranking that also had Iowa in it. And we saw both of those teams just kind of spiral out of control down the stretch. I'm not a big James Franklin guy in terms of in-season coaching and in-game coaching, so I think eventually they'll stumble. But they got that win and cover on the road against Purdue as a road favorite. They get the win and cover on the road against Auburn, so it looks like it's a pretty good veteran team that you can at least trust on the road when they're not playing the likes of an Ohio State or a Michigan. So there's still a good way to profit, it looks like, on this Penn State team. It's just not a team you're going to be taking long shot futures on to win the conference or anything.
So you said you had 5 plays in college. You went over them. Wow, that number shot up to 11.
Which one?
Florida, Tennessee up to 11.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was 6.5 open, and 6.5 I go Tennessee. 11 I'm good, but I've seen some people that make their own numbers. They have this as high as like 16.5.
I said all along, I love this Tennessee offense. I'm not comparing it to Ohio State, but again, when you get options to take Tennessee and their team totals, they can just score with the best of them. I did see the 6.5. I'm on Don Best now. I had a computer model of 10.5, and it is up to 11 again. Another Florida team struggling offensively. And it's kind of tough for like these teams to play these high-powered offenses. And you talked about it earlier on the show. Well, a Notre Dame team playing the UNC team, and it doesn't matter. UNC is going to put up 30 plus, and we haven't seen the Notre Dame offense be able to do anything even close to that.
Exactly. Some of these matchups, and the numbers caught up with Tennessee. So like, that's one, if I'm playing at this point, maybe it's like a team total on Tennessee rather than laying the points. But yeah, UNC Notre Dame shouldn't be a pick 'em. Way too much respect for what we thought Notre Dame should be coming into the year, AP top 5. But I think we've seen enough at this point.
Last couple of minutes, let's circle back to the NFL lanes, plays that you already get. Oh, you got a couple of weeks in already with your over-unders, futures, yada, yada, yada. What you're seeing, if I know it's only Tuesday, for the people watching and listening, and then to close, any promo codes or anything brewing for Sunday with the NFL at DraftKings?
I guess the NFL thing I need to talk about is that the Colts stink. I got the Colts pretty big. My biggest future is the Colts to win the division. And funny enough, we're not even dead at 1-1 because Jacksonville leads at 1-1, and we assume that they have to come down at some point. And the Titans, I mean, I thought that the Colts would be a solid team that could contend in the AFC. That I was dead wrong on. The second part of my cap was that the rest of the AFC South would not be a threat. I'm right about that. I still think. I don't think Jacksonville's a threat. They have a good start, but I don't think they're going to win the division. Houston, I don't think, is going to win the division, and Tennessee looks awful. So the Colts just need to find it, and they can still turn this around and win that division, but they've been awful. I think I have no idea what to do with that game against the Colts. The Colts look ahead was the Chiefs look ahead was -3. It's now -7. Everybody's going to be on the Chiefs in that game. Is this the spot where the Colts bounce back at home, getting a touchdown at home now with the Colts? Don't see that often, but they've been so bad. I don't know if you can bet them. So I think that's a really interesting spot on the board. If you're betting NFL in week 3, if you're betting money lines, DraftKings Sportsbook has been the place to do that. It's the early win promo. We're gonna be bringing that one back for week 3. Thursday night football, bet either team on the money line. If they go up 7 points, you cash your bet, and then the rest of the weekend we'll have it for 10 points. So if you're betting money lines, if your team goes up 10 points at any time, instantly cashes whether the team wins the game or not.
And getting back to your Colts, when you looked at the schedule, I think you thought your home opener you'd be 2-0. You were going to be, you were 10-point favorites almost against the Texans, and you tied there. And then you go to Jacksonville, which has been a house of horrors. You get blown out there. No Pittman, no Pierce. 8 in the box versus Taylor. Ryan couldn't hit a 8-yard button hook to you or me. And it was just putrid there when it came to that. It is interesting, again, a big bounce back spot. Obviously, you need Pittman to open up the Jonathan Taylor. Almost like Julian talking about UNC and Notre Dame, offensively challenged Notre Dame. I think outside looking in at a Chiefs team that just, hey, listen, opening day could have put up 60 at Arizona. A nice Thursday night win against the Chargers. Now, how in holy hell is you're thinking and the rest of the world thinking, can Matt Ryan and company keep up with that offense?
Yeah, I mean, they can't. Outside of the fourth quarter against Houston, where Indy scored 17 points, they've scored 3 total points in the other 7 quarters, plus an overtime period this season against Houston and Jacksonville. 3 points in 7 quarters and an overtime for the Colts offense. So this is one of those situations that it just doesn't seem to make sense, but they're going to come alive at some point. I'm terrified to bet this game, whereas UNC Notre Dame, I feel like I know a little bit more what I'm getting involved with.
Scroll has been going the whole time. Follow Julian Edlow at Julian Edlow at DraftKings, at DK Sportsbook, at DK Live, and of course, check out his podcast at Unreasonable Odds Podcast. If you are wagering on money lines in the NFL, as Julian says, and can bet on the DK Sports, on the DK app, and one of those lucky states, Mass, hopefully sooner than later. Please do. The promo runs the same. What is it? Up a touchdown, Julian? Either which way.
Thursday night football, we do 7 points. The rest of the weekend is 10 points.
All right, so make sure you run over there, download the app if you can, and play there. Any questions, comments, concerns, you can reach out to Julian. If you're looking for a prop, future, or whatever, and you don't see it on there, reach out to him. And he is for the people. He is the voice of reason.
Do what I can.
He'll do what he can. Thank you so much, Julian. Have an amazing week.
Thanks, Jeff. You too. Talk next week.
Yes. The one and only Mr. Julian Edlow at DraftKings, good friend. He is for the people. So again, DraftKings tries to put up as many promos for the people. They're not. That's for another show. Some of the stuff that the sports books are doing with promos and stuff. I like Julian a lot. DraftKings is 45 minutes down the road. Good company. They'll be the big app here in Massachusetts. So later this afternoon, open around 4, maybe 4:15, maybe 4:30. The closing bell with Southside Riley is we're going to break down the MLB card for today. We'll take a look back at the NFL on Sunday with him and get us everyone ready for tonight in baseball and moving forward as the week progresses in college and the NFL. On Wednesday, our weekly trip across the border with the one and only Andrew McGinnis of McGinnis Picks in Wager Talk. Our normal Wednesday at 1. I have some other stuff brewing. I think on Thursday, special guest, a little Kiefer Madness, breaking down some college football. And Friday, we might circle back the wagons and bring in a good friend talking Eagles football and some more NFL. So we'll get up to that. So anyways, thank you all who watched and listened. Come follow us and join us tonight as we get ready for the MLB. So for myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from the one and only Mr. Julian Edlow at Julian Edlow at DraftKings, at all those good things right there. DK Sportsbooks, DK Live, and Unreasonable Odds Podcast. We wish everyone a great morning, a blessed afternoon, and we will see you soon.